So, hey, here we go. So, here's what we're going to do. They say the best way to make sure that you understand something yourself is to teach it to somebody else. So, in this case, I don't know if I'm teaching it, but I'm just want to walk through what I have here and hear myself say it out loud so I can see if I actually understand what it is going on here. Sort of, you know, make sure I really get the gist of this. Okay, so this is a tutorial from Udemy. I'll see if I can link the one that I'm working with here down in the notes in a minute. But in the meantime, I'm just going to start getting into it. It's you can see on the left side here. Oh boy, what did I do there? Let's undo that. I wanted to stop a minute before I started typing from the next section of the tutorial, but I wanted to actually do the explanation up to. I'll just start from the beginning. Okay, so here's the app. Logo is not the name of the app. There should be a logo there. Okay, that's just the way he's doing it in the tutorial. What's going to happen here is that's going to be a search box. You're going to search through some articles, which will be displayed. You have the main component, which is the whole thing. There's a header component, which is this area, and there is a news article component, which is this area, okay, which we will be getting from, in theory, it'll be a database. In the tutorial, it is just from an object. That's fine, but it takes the place of what would normally be a database. That's fine for the purposes of this tutorial. So it's a component with two components, the header component and the news component, and then each of these news items are in turn their own component. So some couple layers of nesting going on here. Okay, so let's just hop in the index.js file. This is created with Create React App, just so you know what's going on there. So the index.js file is with every component. You're going to import React. And if you're going to use an a class component, you have to get the component from the React library, right? So you need both of those. If it's just a functional component, you don't need this component part. You also need, in the main app here, you also need to get React DOM from React DOM. So these things have to be imported. Okay, so what's going on here? What are we rendering? Well, I should say what's in the main component here is the app, right? And where is that going to be displayed? In the document with the ID root, right? So where is that? That's over here in index.html. Yes, down here. Here's the div with the ID of root. Okay, so pretty basic. We pretty much should know how to do that part. Okay, so that's where the app is gonna go. So first thing we got, like I said, here's the header component and the news list component. This is the header component, and this is the news list component. So let's talk about the header component, right? First, because we'll get back to all this in a minute, all this stuff in a minute. So every component has to have at least one. Well, every class component needs to have a render method, right? Because that's how it knows what to give back. So we have the app, and what we're returning from there is, well, it has to remember that it has to have only one thing. So that's why both of these have to be inside this one div. You can't just put header and news list right next to each other and have it work. It won't work. It has to be inside of, has to return one thing, right? So let's take a look at what the header component looks like. So let's just walk through line by line. Again, React, we have to get the React library and the component from there because we're extending the component. If it was just a functional component, we wouldn't need to do that. But we do need. So we're going to use state, so we have to have the constructor and super, right? And this says basically we're going to take the props from the parent component. If you're going to use state, you have to have the constructor and the super. Again, this I was saying, I think I got a step ahead of really where I want it to be. This keywords thing is part of the next step in the tutorial. So I'm going to sort of ignore that for now. I got a little bit ahead. So what's this about? Input, change, event, set state. Okay, so that's over here. This is, let's go down here. So the header, right? Header, class name, the logo. Okay, what's this on click about? Okay, so on click. So basically, it looks like anywhere in the header. If we click it, we're gonna get a console log clicked. Is that what's happening? Let's see. Yep, there it is. Right. So anywhere on there, you see it's getting clicked, and that this is increasing every time I do it. Right. So that's working. Let's see. Can I change that over here? Yeah, that'll be a little better. See what's going on a little better. Okay, good. So that was early in the tutorial. They were just giving us the handle of how a event works over there. Okay, so then you got the inside the whole. Again, this is like before. When you return something, it has to be inside of one item. So in this case, instead of a div, it's all inside of the header. Okay. So we have the div with the logo, which is this part right here, right? And then we've got the input, which is the input box. Okay. So what's going on here is the event on change event on the input box. So basically what's going on there is anytime anything changes in here, what's going to happen? It's going to call this function, right? Because when we see the curly brace, it means we're leaving this quote unquote HTML and going into starting writing JavaScript. So we're going to reference this in this case is this class that the header class that we're making, right? And so we're saying on the header class, there's something called input change, which you can see right here, which happens to be a function, right? Okay. Bind this, right? You have to do that because with the arrow function, it has to do with, if you don't do bind this, it binds, it thinks this is on here on this input change. We want it to be on the class, so it gets state, right? There's no state object on the input change. It's up here. So we want to, before we call it, we need to say this binding to this means get it from here, not from here. Get it from the component state, not from the function. Okay, it's to do with function scope and stuff like that. Okay. So at any rate, anytime this input changes, what's going to happen is we're going to call this function, right? And this function takes an event. Basically, that's this is anytime it's this on change event. So calling this on change is the event, right? And the event object, I guess is the way they refer to it, has certain things to attach to it. So here's an event. Like if I'm hitting my next key, right? And I'm pressing my H. That's an event.